going to spend just a couple of minutes going over this with you so you can explore this with you. This is a Power BI visualization that you can access through the link which I'll give in the line group later. This I took the information from Bloomberg last December, about 1 month ago, and I obtained the ROIC of companies listed in the stock exchange of Thailand. So I just want to give a little sense of the distribution of what the ROIC numbers are like. So the bottom left part is like the histogram, and also this is the average ROIC by industry sectors as classified by Bloomberg. And if we have enough breakdown of detail, the industry classification by Bloomberg is very precise. So they lump a lot of different companies together in one group. But if we have an appropriate breakdown of companies by types, then what you might begin to see is that ROIC of companies that are in the same business tend to be quite close together if they follow the same strategies. On the other hand, companies in the same business could choose to follow different strategies. One could be a premium producer, the other one could be a low-cost producer, but both of these would end up with high ROIC anyway. One of the tools that you could use to, map companies, positioning map of companies, or is this company good or not, is to break down the ROIC into the margin and also the efficiency components and plot it on a two-dimensional diagram like this. So you might want to plot on one axis the capital efficiency, how much sales the company gets compared to the capital investment they make, and also the margin. So when we do this, we should be able to see companies line up and line like this. Because companies can pursue extreme strategies and be very efficient, even though the profit margin is very slim. It's okay for them because they don't need to invest in a lot of capital. On the other hand, you can have companies that have really high profit margin, but they tend to be the companies that need to have the sufficient investment to support the price that they charge as well. An example you can consider is if you sell a handbag, you can be a handbag seller in Sampeng. Doesn't sell for a very high price, profit margin not very high, but they're very efficient because in that small shop they make millions of baht of sale a day. Very small margin on each bag, but I just overcome the low margin by volume instead. On the other hand, you can be a high-end producer, design a bag. Each bag has very high profit margin, but in order to charge that profit margin, your shop needs to be well decorated as well. So they may suffer on the efficiency part. So you can start to see like a position map of companies, and then analyze that if you want to improve the ROIC of your company, which path should I pursue? Because if you start off as a low-cost producer, you might find it more difficult to become a premium producer. You may want to pursue the low-cost strategy to more extreme instead. So you can map the quadrant out, and then if you separate them into boxes, let's say 4 boxes, this is the box you want to be in, right? Top right quadrant, because very high efficiency, also very high profit margin. Bottom left box is a box you don't want to be in. But if you think like that, you're missing one part of the picture. Because companies that have very high ROIC, that might be good, but not good enough. Because if the company is really risky, high ROIC also comes with a high hurdle. And it might be high true, but not high enough. On the other hand, you could be down here, right? Low efficiency, low profit margin. But if your business is very safe, if you are a contracted power producer, you secure a long-term contract to generate electricity. Yes, you invest a lot in your power plant. You might not be able to charge a very high price margin, but it's really safe. Your sales is guaranteed. So your profit margin, your ROIC could be low, but that's fine because your business is very low risk. So it's still a good business to invest in as well. So for a company, moving up or moving to the right is a good strategy. But companies that are positioned very high on the top right quadrant doesn't guarantee that the company is creating value. You need to know the piece of the puzzle. How much should you be generating? And only if you're beating that, you are creating value for the company. Last part that's not on here is the growth opportunity. You can be in a business that is really profitable, but if the market size is very small, then it might not be worthwhile to pursue opportunities. You might want to move slightly lower in pursuit of higher market size instead. There are a lot of visualizations that you can explore, but in the interest of time today, I think I'll proceed to the next topic instead, and then come back to this as we go out through the class. Because in the end, the most important concept that we're going to be going over and over again is, are we making enough? If we're making enough, this justifies our existence. If we're not making enough, then how can we make enough? And so on. Okay, so let me turn the attention back to the materials for class today. The last part today is going to be about financial planning, which involves what's called pro forma financial statement. But financial planning is the financial part of business plan. And the business plan you've seen many times in many classes. I like to think of business plan as really a story, okay? A story of your company. You want to convince other people that this is an investment opportunity worthwhile of their attention. So how do I convince them that I'm going to be creating value? So it's like a roadmap of how we can to achieve success. And this involves a collection of assumptions, plans, and so on. So these are typical questions you want to be asking. So I'm not going to repeat that because I think you've seen that enough time throughout this class. But the financial plan is the financial part, the numbers part of your business plan. In short, we are interested in turning all the stories you're promising to your investors into a measurable numerical number that convince them that yes, this will be worthwhile. And that will involve making forecasts. In finance, we call this pro forma up here, pro forma financial statements, which literally just means we're guessing the future. That's a nice way of putting it. Okay? The cynical way of putting it is these are our imagination. If everything goes according to plan, we can expect to see these numbers in the future. So this means when you want to use pro forma financial statements, if you want to have nice numbers, no problem. You can make up anything that you want. But that's not why you want to use it. Because a business plan, a good business plan should tell you, is this worth it or not? Our job is not to change the numbers so that our plan works. Our job is to turn our plan, our business actions into numbers and let the numbers tell us, does this strategy work? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We find a different way to go about our business. Okay, so I repeat again, when you write a business plan, the goal is not to write a business plan that will work. The goal is to test our view about what we're going to do. Turn that into numbers and then verify, is this really worth it? I have a hunch that this is going to be worth it. But it turns out when I calculate things out, this is money sucking. This is not worth my time. So instead of proceeding in the things that's going to pull down your future, might as well change to something else instead. This is important too. When you go and you do your IS, okay, we only see business plans that make a lot of profit. Sure, you can make a lot of profit if you want to, but are you going to use that plan? If you are not confident of using that plan in real life, then maybe your numbers are not informative. If that's the case, what was the point in spending time in doing it? So this is my personal view alone. Okay, for me personally, your business plan may be a plan that tells you, hey, this does not work, let's not do it. For me, it's okay too. But when you finally end up doing your business plan with your advisor, check with them again what their preferences are. For me, I just go with the truth. Okay? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Now we know what not to do. If we try to make it work, it still doesn't work. That's even more convincing that we should be doing this. Because otherwise, if you want the numbers to work, you can plug any numbers that you want. But how useful are those numbers? It's another issue. Back to this. Okay. Pro forma financial statement involves making forecasts about what is likely to happen given what we plan to do in the future. In terms of the tasks involved, it means forecasting what our financial statements would look like, income statement, balance sheet, and so on. And in doing so, it provides us with the output that we can use to analyze the business. It provides us with the insight in terms of financial planning, financial requirements. If this business is going to cost 2 million baht to start, do I need to put in any more money along the way? Some businesses are like that. Right? You start off with this, but it turns out you need to put in more and more and more to make it grow. If that's a business you want to be in, at least don't be blindsided by the time it happens. If you know in advance you need money, then prepare to have enough money in advance. So, when you make forecasts, typically, you can you need assumptions to think about what's going to happen in the future. And the lines in the financial statements tend to have actions associated with them. For example, if you talk about what is my profit margin going to be like, you might want to separate your cost into fixed costs and variable costs, for example. If you want to think about how much sales you would likely generate, then maybe it's a good idea to think about your capacity. I want to grow, but wait a minute, I only have one shop. This shop is supposed to serve 100,000 people in Bangkok. Can we really produce that much given our investments and so on, right? So these numbers will typically have business actions associated with them. And the actions that drive these numbers, we call them either like revenue drivers or cost drivers. Let's give some example. Okay, up there. Example, revenue drivers, if you're in a tech business and you're writing applications, then you might want to think about a couple of things. Like number one, how many active users do I have? Not just how many users have installed, but how many of them are actually using them. What's my revenue model? Are these customers, they need to pay in advance to use my applications? Or do they use applications for free and then add more money as we go along? If you play online games, then that's why they try to entice you to spend more and more. So you would need a couple of assumptions. One, how many active players am I going to have? And number two, how much on average would these customers spend per month? And you can use that to forecast your sales and so on. We're going to do this together. Okay, that's why I asked you to bring the laptop and give you some time to try to do it yourself and then we complete it together. But when you do it, you find that the most important line of all the drivers of the forecast is your sales. Everything is going to be derived from your sales. Cost. How much is it going to cost me? Well, if I sell more, it's going to cost more. How much inventory do I need to buy? If I'm going to sell more, I need to have a lot more in stock to support that sales. So the most important number to get right is how much are you going to be able to sell. So here's some approaches for you to forecast sales. Right? First one, when you're doing a business forecast or something that you've done already before. You've been growing 5% in the past, so maybe next year you grow 5%. Notice here that there really is no reason to support why you should grow 5%. Just because you've been growing at 5% in the past doesn't mean you're going to grow 5% in the future. So the top one is like the easy way out. I have no idea about how to forecast sales. Well, let's just pretend it's going to continue. If we look at sales growth of most companies, so their sales growth trajectory is not constant. There's concept like a business life cycle. Right? In the early years, companies tend to be able to grow very fast, which is very small. But when you are a $1 billion company, 1% growth is a lot of growth. So if you assume you can continue to grow at 5% every year when you're really big, it's a lot of burden on your new sales. So top one trend, easy, not informative, not recommended. So let's focus on the other two instead. Top down versus bottom up. Okay, what does top down mean? What does bottom up mean? I'll show you these pyramids. In the end, what we're after is what the startup community call TAM, total addressable market. This means how many people can I sell to? That's simple way of talking about it. What's my potential? How many people can I sell to? That's my sales potential. Another name for this, if you're a consultant, management consultant, you're trying to interview for, say, McKinsey and so on, this exercise is called market sizing exercise. What's the market size? Can I estimate the market size? And these two pyramids give you an approach of how to get the market size. The tip of the pyramids are what you want to get at. Let's start with top down. Okay? Top down just says, okay, here's the economy, here's the market, here's the sub-market. How much of that market can I capture? If the economy is good, maybe this market is going to grow. Then, what kind of penetration rate do I need to get? If you work at FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods company like Unilever, P&G, for example, they sometimes give you a sales target in terms of market share. This is the size of the market for shampoo. I want 25% market share. I know the market is going to grow by 10% next year based on some forecast. So this is your sales target. That's the top down. Problem is with top down, okay, you giving a target, nice. How to do it? Can you do it? I don't know. Maybe the size that I told you, it means I have to sell to every single people. Because the market size may be big, yes, but I'm not in every single market in Thailand. I'm only in Bangkok. So to get 25% of market for Thailand actually means I get 80% of Bangkok market. Might not be reasonable. So a bottom up starts from the other approach. Who are my customers? How many of them are there? How many markets am I selling in? There are 10 million people, registered and unregistered people in Bangkok. How likely are they to be buying shampoos? How often are they going to buy shampoos? Then based on these, I can come up with some estimates of this is like the maximum potential sales I can get from them. So you can think of the bottom-up approach as like the P times Q approach. How many units can I sell? And what's the pricing per unit? And to estimate the units, you need to use a bit of either guesswork or some intuition. So let's do some example. Okay. A top-down approach would look like this. Suppose you're back in, say, 2016. Back then, soft drink market for Thailand is about 150 billion baht. Sure, but that's not your market. That's all soft drink. If you're Satay, Satay sells soft drink, yes, but soft drink includes, some fruit concentrates, includes soda, Coca-Cola, and so on. So a lot of this market is actually Coke, Pepsi, and all those stuff. So 150 billion might not be your number. Let's zoom down a little bit. Okay. Satay was better known for things like the beauty drink and so on, which is classified as the functional soft drink. So that market is actually about 31 billion baht. They also sell fruit juices, moku moku, and all those stuff and so on. That market is about 14 billion baht. So these are really our market. Within those segments of the market, how much share do we really want to capture? So that's an example of top-down approach. You start very big and then start narrowing down. Okay, this is a sub-market of a sub-market of a sub-market, and this is my market. How much market share do we want? Bottom-up approach is actually one of the most favorite questions for a consulting interview. They'll ask you things like this. How many light bulbs are there in Bangkok? I want to estimate the market size for light bulbs in Bangkok. You find this information. You search on Google, what do you think is going to show up? Maybe some advertising for light bulbs. But not information about how many light bulbs are there in Bangkok. Because it doesn't exist. But just because it doesn't exist, doesn't mean you can't have a logical way of guessing what that size is going to be. Because The market is there, just that nobody measures that for you readily. So if you want to estimate it, let's imagine you're interviewing for a job at a consulting firm. They ask you this question. How would you answer this? If you blurt out a number like 100 million, that's it, you're out. Because nobody really knows what that number is. You give a number, how would you come up with that number? So you have an answer?
So if I was asked this,
Okay.
I would start with, I would choose the area in Bangkok,
Okay.
which is like not very crowded, not very empty, and guess how many number of houses there are in
Okay.
there, and then how many like floors there are, how many approximately number of light bulbs will be used, and then just multiply that area according to the area size of Bangkok.
Fantastic.
And get to it.
So that's the idea, right? You identify things we call drivers. What are the drivers in this market? What makes people demand light bulbs? Well, we need to have houses because houses have to have light bulbs. Then you need to know how many houses there are. Then you start looking for clues about how to estimate that number. Very good. So if you're interviewing for a consulting job, they are not looking for a number. They're looking for an answer of how you got that number. Because in this world, okay, it's not what you know that matters, but how do you make that conclusion is the most important. Because that's a skill that helps you navigate uncertainties in the world. Knowledge is always changing. Knowledge, once it becomes public, you can just Google it. So nobody values knowledge anymore. If you can memorize a lot of stuff, great, but so can Google. Google never forgets. But if you can answer questions that have no readily available answers for, that's the skill people are willing to pay for. People talk a lot about in the age of AI and so on. How can we survive? Well, as long as AI can't do these stuff yet, then that's how we have the edge over machines. Okay? And that's the idea of bottom-up approach. You can turn this into questions like, how many gas stations is there in Bangkok? What will be the demand? And then ways for you to ascertain this. Notice you start off with some ways of estimating that. The next job is then to make your estimation process, which involves a lot of assumptions, turn that into facts. If you want to estimate how much demand there is for, say, a gas station, I know for a fact that oil companies will send out workers to go and count how many cars pass through the station on each day. Then they have a very good mathematical relationship that they collect in the past to estimate that if this is how many cars pass, then we can pretty much predict how much demand for oil that's going to be in that area. And then they can use that to plan how many filling stations required to have in that area. So, okay, so that's the bottom-up approach, and it's a lot more informative. Because number one, it involves you thinking about the drivers of your business. Why do people want to pay you money? Who are the people who want to pay you money? Once you crack your head through this, then maybe strategies that allow you to target them better will come out as a result. Number two, very important for businesses that have capacity. You estimate the market size, it turns out I don't have enough capacity to serve that. So do I build another oil station? Or do you say, you know what, it's a lot, but it's not enough to justify a new station. So I'm okay with letting the lost sales go because if I go after those incremental sales, it might not be good. Okay, so it's a good brain exercise, and no wonder why when you interview for companies, I think tech companies are now using this as well. You interview for strategy roles in their business because in the end, it's the management consultants who end up working in those roles in companies. If you want more information on this, then just Google consulting case interview guides, and then you see a lot more sample questions and also the thought process required. If you go to website of, I think, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, they have interactive online case where you can click through a series of questions, and it's going to be as if you are in a case interview with a partner, and then you can test whether your way of approaching problems is in line with what they're looking for. So if you have time, I suggest you go to BCG website and do the online case prep to have a look at that. Okay, back to our job. Once we forecast numbers, we're going to find that your income statement, no problem. Okay. Revenue, cost, and so on, you have a good idea of what they're going to be like given our assumptions. The problem is going to be your balance sheet, because a balance sheet must balance. If you use past information, it's very crucial a balance sheet must balance because things happen. So you need to know why you have this number there. If the numbers on the two sides don't balance, that's a check and balance system to tell you that something is wrong. Okay, everything about accounting, double entry bookkeeping, the identity of accounting, all are done for just one purpose. I want to know what happened very accurately. And I want to have a system that allows a traceability if something wrong happens. But that's past information. It happened, so you know it should balance. Information in the future, you don't need to balance. It hasn't happened. What you're going to find out is that when you make your forecast, your assets will not equal liabilities and equity. If they're equal, chances are very slim, about as much as you winning a lottery, I guess. Because there's no way for the two sides to be equal unless you make sure they grow at the same rate. Your assets may grow at different rates because you may invest in a lot of inventory, but your inventory may not be financed with accounts payable because you bought it on cash, you didn't use credit term. Then you need to find some capital to fund the gap. That's one example. So what you're going to find is either your assets on left-hand side are going to be higher than liabilities and equity right-hand side, or the other way around. One way to think about this is assets are uses of cash. If my assets are very large, I need a lot of cash. If my assets are larger than my right-hand side, then what I plan to do requires a lot more cash than I have. So how do I finance that gap? Assets greater than liabilities and equity means your plan is a bit ambitious. You don't have enough resources to have all those assets. So you either need to scale back or find some capital. On the other hand, if your assets are smaller than liabilities and equity, it means your uses of cash compared to your sources are lower. So you don't need a lot of that. So you have a choice of either returning the cash or keeping the extra on hand. You're going to see this in our example that we will do together. The example I'm going to give to you, you're going to have a situation where your assets are going to be lower than liabilities and equity. And we're going to explore some ways for us to make the balance sheet balance. The final step here then involves what adjustments do we need to make sure both sides balance. When I say this, accountants will cringe, because when you are doing accounting and audit, you are not supposed to artificially make them balance. You're supposed to find out why they're not balanced. But here though, it will not be balanced. So it will be our job to force the two sides to be the same. But the actions required to force the two sides to be the same may involve external financing, may involve returning extra cash we have on hand, or may just involve parking that in the bank account somewhere. So, we're going to open a coffee shop together. Okay, I think we are kind of short on time, so we're not going to answer all these. But if you do a business plan, before you go to numbers, these are the questions that you might want to be thinking about. What kind of coffee should I sell? If I sell this kind of coffee, what kind of equipment do I need? If I price my coffee at 100 baht, what does my store need to look like? And so on. And those will translate into your investment requirements. Then you can do your sales forecast. You have an idea what your cost structure is going to be like. So our job will be then to turn the planning that we have into financial numbers. So here I turn the plan into numbers already. Okay, your job will be to put these numbers into the financial statement and see what it takes for the financial statement to be balanced. So here are some assumptions. Okay, so you have some operating assumptions. Sales here will be driven by the price per cup times how many cups times how many days are we selling. We could be even more detailed if we have more product lines. I sell coffee, but I also sell bakery too. I also sell merchandise. You can make this as detailed as you like. But for simplicity, we're gonna keep it streamlined over here so you see the idea. Cost of goods sold, percentage of selling price. By the way, does anyone have a friend or in the business of food? What percentage of cost It's a typical amount for a restaurant to be able to survive. So the examples that people use a lot is you go to a brunch restaurant and you pay for omelette and so on. The omelette costs 200 baht. If you make this at home, it costs a lot less than that. So why is it that we go out to do all that? From marketing perspective, we're doing it for the experience, blah blah blah, and so on. But just from the cost management perspective, okay, a lot of the consumers there just look at the food cost. But when you open a restaurant, the cost isn't just the food itself. Food, wait staff, the consumables in the store, decoration, wages, whatever and so on. So typically that's why food in restaurants has to be expensive. So, the guideline is about a third. If you're spending more than a third of your food cost compared to price, then it's very hard to make it in the business. So that's why I put it to around about 35%. So other items, depreciation and so on. So here fixed assets have 5 years of useful life. We're going to have some information about investments later on. SG&A, it's a combination of rent and also partly driven by sales, operating cash requirement, and so on. So, if we look at the left-hand side where we start a business, this is how much capital we need to start the business. All the fixed assets, your decoration and so on, let's say it's about 2 million baht. You don't just need to open your store. You don't just need the cost to open your store. You need the cost that you need to set up your working capital as well. So back there, my working capital includes things like cash you need to have on hand, and also includes things like inventory. When you open a store, you need to have some coffee beans and cups and so on. So when we add these two together, 80,000 baht and 20,000 baht, 100,000 baht. This is how much of your own capital you need to put in. Unless you have credit term, unless you can operate with less cash and so on. That's what working capital is meant to signify. What resources do you need to keep your company going? I need to have cash to give out exchange to my customers. I need to have all these coffee beans and cups so that when my customers come in, I can serve them. But if I have other business strategies that allow me to not use my own money, this will save on the working capital part. Here though, the accounts payable, not really there at the beginning. You open up, you don't have any credit with your suppliers yet, so I'm going to assume that you need to have the full 100,000 baht cash and inventory. Long-term assets, 2 million baht. So this is our left-hand side, okay, capital requirements. 2 million baht for long-term assets, 0.1 million baht for working capital. I need 2.1 million baht to open this coffee shop. The next question is where I'm going to find the 2.1 million baht. Say I'm going to use 1.1 million baht of my own equity and 1 million baht of bank loan. So 2.1 million baht of capital to be spent in these two components. If you go back to the Google Drive link that I showed you earlier in this class, there's a folder called spreadsheets. And that folder contains the Excel spreadsheet that I would like you to spend the next 20 minutes in either individually or together and fill it.
Yeah.